What would push three men to commit one of the most brutal crimes in recent history? How does a rap battle, a contest of words and skill, spiral into an act of unimaginable violence? And how does a survivor endure, defy all odds, and live to tell the tale? On New Year's Day 2014, a quiet, empty lot in Columbus, Georgia, became the setting for a crime so heinous, it left seasoned investigators questioning humanity itself. A young woman's talent and confidence during a freestyle rap battle struck a nerve with three men, but instead of accepting defeat, they sought revenge so cruel, so calculated, it would shock the nation. Forced at gunpoint to drive to an isolated location, this woman, outnumbered and overpowered, faced relentless violence, assaulted, shot 10 times, and left for dead. Her attackers believed they had silenced her forever. But they were wrong. This is not just the story of a crime, it's a confrontation with uncomfortable truths. How do we explain the entitlement that leads to such acts? Why does society struggle to protect women from these horrors? And most importantly, how do we ensure voices like hers are heard and justice is served? As we unravel this story, we'll examine the egos and entitlement that fueled the attack, the courage of a survivor who refused to be erased, and the justice that demanded accountability. This isn't an easy story to hear, but it's one we all need to understand. Stay with us. It's time to face the questions we can no longer ignore. Welcome to the last confession. Thank you very much, my viewers, most especially my wonderful subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories. Please, if this is your first time coming across our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel here on The Last Confession. To understand the depths of this story, we must first step back and meet the people at its center, the victim, Betrayal Saunders, and the men who turned her life into a nightmare, Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Garin. Betrayal Saunders was a young, vibrant woman with dreams as big as her talent. Raised in Columbus, Georgia, she grew up surrounded by music. Her father, a gospel musician, introduced her to the power of lyrics, rhythm, and storytelling. By her teenage years, Betrayal was a local star in freestyle rap battles. Her quick wit and lyrical flow earned her respect in a predominantly male space. She wasn't just talented, she was fearless. Betrayal's confidence in her craft made her a standout wherever she went, often drawing crowds eager to hear her turn words into poetry. But her ambition wasn't only about fame. She saw rap as a way to connect, to inspire, and to prove that a woman's voice in hip-hop could carry as much weight as any man's. On the night in question, it was this confidence that led her to Garden Drive, a known gathering spot for local rappers. She wasn't there to make trouble. She was there to compete, to showcase her skill, and to enjoy the thrill of the mic. What she didn't know was that her strength and success would spark envy and rage in the wrong people. But what would become clear in the aftermath is this: Betrayal's resilience, forged through years of overcoming challenges, would be the very thing that kept her alive. Now, let's turn to the men who changed the trajectory of Betrayal's life forever: Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Garin. Each of them carried a history that, when pieced together, revealed a disturbing pattern of anger, violence, and disregard for others. Robert Johnson was the ringleader. At 25, he was already well acquainted with the legal system. His juvenile record painted a troubling picture, including a conviction for forcing an 8-year-old girl to perform unspeakable acts when he was just 13. He claimed the victim had followed him willingly, a chilling glimpse into his warped sense of entitlement. As an adult, Johnson's temper and need for control dominated his interactions. Friends described him as someone who thrived on intimidation, using his physical presence and sharp tongue to keep others in line. Katori Glover, 26, was quieter but no less dangerous. Those who knew him described a man who seemed calm on the surface but could erupt without warning. His criminal record included petty theft and assault, but what stood out most was his impulsiveness. Glover was the kind of person who acted first and thought later, a dangerous quality when combined with Johnson's manipulative tendencies. Joey Garin was the youngest of the trio at 22. Often overlooked and underestimated, he was the follower, the one who sought validation by aligning himself with stronger personalities. But his insecurities didn't make him any less complicit. In fact, Garin's unpredictability often escalated situations. His need to prove himself led to acts of recklessness that left destruction in their wake. Together, these three men formed a volatile group. Johnson was the leader, the one who set the tone. Glover acted as the enforcer, carrying out orders without hesitation. Guerin, desperate for acceptance, filled in the gaps, adding fuel to an already dangerous mix. What brought them together that night on Garden Drive was their shared need for dominance and recognition. But what set them apart was their inability to handle rejection. Brielle's victory in the rap battle wasn't just a loss to them, it was a challenge to their egos. And in their world, where control was everything, that challenge demanded retaliation. It began as a night full of energy and excitement, the kind that often surrounded underground rap scenes. The party house on Garden Drive was alive with music, laughter, and the quick-fire cadence of freestyle rap battles. Brielle Saunders was in her element, confident, skilled, and ready to take on anyone who stepped up to the mic. The house buzzed with anticipation as Brielle, well known for her sharp wit and lyrical talent, went head-to-head with some of the best freestyle rappers in the room. The crowd gathered close, cheering with every clever line and sharp retort. Among those watching were Robert Johnson, Cat-Ori Glover, and Joey Guerin. For a while, the rap battle seemed like nothing more than friendly competition. Brielle's energy and skill drew everyone in, including the three men. They watched her with growing fascination, her ability to dominate the battle sparking a mix of admiration and frustration. Eventually, the battle moved from the crowded house to the quieter space of Brielle's car, where she, Johnson, Glover, and Guerin continued to freestyle. It seemed, at least for a moment, like a harmless extension of the night's fun. Inside the car, the mood remained light at first. Laughter and rhymes filled the air as the group took turns showcasing their lyrical prowess. Brielle held her ground effortlessly, her verses flowing with the same confidence that had captivated the crowd earlier. But as the night wore on, the dynamic began to shift. Johnson and Glover exchanged glances, their demeanor changing almost imperceptibly. The atmosphere grew tense, though Brielle, engrossed in the music and the moment, didn't immediately notice. Then, without warning, Glover pulled out a gun. The air turned icy as Johnson followed suit, his weapon aimed directly at Brielle. The laughter and camaraderie evaporated in an instant. The men ordered Brielle to start driving, their voices sharp and commanding. Her heart pounded as she tried to process what was happening. She complied, gripping the steering wheel tightly as she navigated the streets, unsure of where they were taking her or why. The tension in the car was suffocating, every second stretching into what felt like hours. As they drove, Glover grew impatient and demanded she pull over. He took control of the wheel, forcing Brielle into the passenger seat. The men exchanged crude remarks, their words laced with malice. Guerin, sitting in the back, remained mostly silent, but his uneasy fidgeting suggested he knew exactly where this was heading. The car came to a stop at an abandoned lot on Far Road, a place chosen for its isolation. There were no lights, no sounds, and no one around to witness the horrors about to unfold. The cold air bit at Brielle's skin as she sat frozen in the passenger seat, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. The eerie silence of the night was broken only by the low murmurs of the men and the sound of her own racing heartbeat. The lot itself was desolate, overgrown with weeds and littered with debris. Shadows stretched across the barren ground, cast by the faint glow of the moon above. Brielle could feel the chill creeping through her, but it wasn't just the cold, it was fear. She pleaded with the men, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her. She begged them to let her go, reasoning with them, trying to appeal to any sliver of humanity they might have. But her pleas were met with cruel laughter, their mocking tones cutting through the darkness. They didn't see her as a person anymore. To them, she was an object, a target for their anger and frustration. The laughter only grew louder as Johnson and Glover brandished their weapons, making it clear there would be no escape. What followed was an assault so horrifying that the details would later leave a courtroom in stunned silence. Brielle was forced to strip at gunpoint, her dignity stolen piece by piece. The men degraded her, taking turns assaulting her both physically and sexually. They used their guns as instruments of humiliation, the cold metal pressing against her skin as they took turns inflicting unimaginable pain. They had a good old time, Brielle would later testify in court, her voice trembling with the weight of those words. They were passing me around like a piece of cake. She endured repeated acts of brutality, each one designed to break her spirit. But even in the midst of such cruelty, Brielle's strength remained. She clung to the hope that somehow, some way, she would survive this nightmare. The men's laughter echoed across the empty lot as they took turns violating her. For them, it was a game. For Betrayal, it was a fight for her life. When the assault finally ended, the men weren't finished. They attempted to force Betrayal into the trunk of her car, their plans unknown but their intent unmistakable. It was then that Betrayal saw her chance. With every ounce of strength she had left, she broke free and ran. She didn't think, she just ran. Her bare feet pounding against the cold ground as gunshots rang out behind her. Johnson and Glover opened fire, their bullets finding their target again and again. Betrayal was hit 10 times, her body collapsing to the ground under the weight of her injuries. But even then, she wasn't done fighting. She lay still, her breathing shallow, pretending to be dead as the men approached, believing their work was finished. The men retrieved a gas can from the trunk of the car. They doused Betrayal in gasoline, the acrid smell filling the air, and set her on fire. Flames engulfed her body as the men fled, convinced they had erased all evidence of their crime. But Betrayal wasn't done. Against all odds, she found the strength to move. Through the pain of her burns and bullet wounds, she crawled inch by inch toward safety. Her body was broken, but her will to live remained unshaken. Passers-by eventually found her, drawn by the faint sound of her cries. They called for help, and Betrayal was rushed to the hospital, her life hanging by a thread. Doctors marveled at her survival, calling it nothing short of a miracle. Covered in burns and riddled with bullet wounds, Betrayal had endured more than most could imagine. And yet, she was alive. Her story was far from over. What had happened in that lot was only the beginning of a journey toward justice. Stay with us as we explore how Betrayal's courage would shine in the days to come and how her testimony would bring 3 men to account for their crimes. As Betrayal Saunders fought for her life in the hospital, the wheels of justice began to turn. The case landed on the desk of Lieutenant Lance Dion, a seasoned investigator with years of experience in handling violent crimes. Yet, even for Dion, this case stood out. The brutality described by first responders and medical staff left no doubt that this would be one of the most harrowing investigations of his career. Dion arrived at the scene on Far Road, a desolate and eerie lot still bearing the marks of the previous night's horror. Burned patches of grass and scattered debris painted a grim picture. Among the evidence were bullet casings, tire marks, and fragments of clothing, a silent testament to the violence that had unfolded there. Forensic technicians meticulously documented every detail, preserving the evidence that would later play a critical role in securing justice. As the investigation unfolded, witnesses from the party on Garden Drive began to come forward. Some recounted seeing Betrayal leave with 3 men, identifying them as Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Guerin. Their descriptions matched what Betrayal was able to share from her hospital bed, her voice steady despite the unimaginable pain she was enduring. Forensic evidence further tightened the noose around the perpetrators. DNA collected from the crime scene and Betrayal's body confirmed their involvement, leaving no room for doubt. Dion's team worked tirelessly, piecing together the events of that night. Each new discovery solidified the case against the 3 men. Once Johnson, Glover, and Guerin were identified as suspects, they were swiftly taken into custody. During their interrogations, their stories began to unravel. Each man attempted to shift blame, claiming the events of that night were consensual. But their claims were at odds with the overwhelming evidence, Betrayal's detailed testimony, witness accounts, and the forensic findings that painted a damning picture of their actions. The interrogation videos captured their desperation. Johnson maintained a cold arrogance, insisting that Betrayal had willingly participated in the night's events. Glover remained stoic but stumbled over his words when confronted with the DNA evidence. Guerin, the youngest and most insecure of the group, broke down under pressure. His nervous fidgeting and inconsistent statements only further implicated him. Their arrest sent shockwaves through the community. As the details of the attack became public, outrage grew. The brutality of the crime and the lack of remorse shown by the perpetrators left many in disbelief. Rallies were held in support of Betrayal, with community members demanding justice and ensuring her voice would not be silenced. Lieutenant Dion, reflecting on the case later, described it as one of the most brutal he had ever encountered. Yet, he also spoke of the remarkable courage shown by Betrayal and the unwavering determination of his team to bring her attackers to justice. As the men awaited trial, the stage was set for a courtroom battle that would expose the depths of their cruelty and test the limits of the justice system. The courtroom was silent as Betrayal Saunders took the stand. Every eye in the room was on her, yet she remained composed, determined to tell her story. It wasn't just her courage on display, it was her will to ensure her attackers were held accountable for their actions. Betrayal's testimony was nothing short of heartbreaking. In vivid detail, she recounted the events of that night. She spoke about the laughter that filled the car before it turned to threats, the cold air of the abandoned lot, and the excruciating pain of the assault. Every word carried the weight of her trauma, yet she delivered it with a strength that commanded the room. When they were done, they tried to throw me in the trunk like I was trash, she said, her voice trembling but steady. I thought I was going to die, but I ran. I had to run. Gasps rippled through the gallery as she described being shot 10 times, doused in gasoline, and set on fire. They didn't think I'd survive, she continued, but I did. And I'm here today because I refused to let them win. The defense attorneys attempted to counter her testimony, pleading for leniency for their clients. They painted Johnson, Glover, and Guerin as men who had made terrible mistakes but were capable of redemption. My client has expressed deep remorse, said Adam Dver, Katori Glover's attorney. He's willing to take responsibility for his actions, and I ask this court to consider his potential for rehabilitation, but prosecutor Sudna Daly was relentless. She dismantled the defense's arguments with precision, presenting overwhelming evidence of the defendant's actions and their lack of genuine remorse. These men didn't just attack Betrayal, they dehumanized her, Daly said. Their actions were calculated, cruel, and entirely devoid of empathy. They didn't show her mercy then, and they don't deserve mercy now. Daly pointed to the interrogation videos, where the men claimed Betrayal had consented to the assault, knowing full well they had forced her at gunpoint. She also highlighted Johnson's juvenile record, which included a prior sexual offense, to underscore the danger they posed to society. They treated her like an object, disposable and insignificant, Daly declared. This court must send a clear message that such evil will not go unpunished. Judge Art Smith III delivered his verdict with the gravity the case demanded. Johnson, Glover, and Guerin sat motionless as he read out their sentences, the weight of their punishment sinking in with every word. Johnson and Glover received 6 life sentences plus 95 years, while Guerin received 5 life sentences plus 70 years. Their crimes, aggravated assault, rape, sodomy, kidnapping, and more, were met with the harshest penalties the law could impose. Judge Smith's words were scathing as he addressed the defendants. The testimony in this case is among the most brutal I've heard in my tenure as a Superior Court judge, he said. You treated Miss Saunders as though her life had no value, as though she was disposable. But she proved you wrong. Her will to survive has brought us here today, and now you must face the consequences of your inhumanity. The sentences were met with relief and applause from the gallery, where Betrayal's family and supporters Saturday the community's demand for justice had been heard, and the men who had sought to destroy Betrayal's life would now spend the rest of theirs behind bars. The trial was a victory for justice, but it was also a testament to Betrayal's courage. She had faced her attackers, shared her story, and ensured they could never harm another person again. As the courtroom emptied, one thing was clear: this was more than a legal battle, it was a fight for dignity, accountability, and the enduring power of resilience. Stay with us as we reflect on the aftermath of the case and how Betrayal's strength continues to inspire those around her. Betrayal Saunders' recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Her physical wounds, 10 gunshot injuries and severe burns, required months of intensive care and rehabilitation. But the emotional scars would take even longer to heal. Surrounded by her family and community, Betrayal found strength in their unwavering support. They rallied around her, proving that while the attack had broken her body, her spirit remained unshaken. The impact of Betrayal's story rippled far beyond her personal journey. Her case sparked a rallying cry for justice, shining a harsh light on the epidemic of violence against women. Community leaders called for changes to local policies, including increased protections for vulnerable individuals and harsher penalties for violent offenders. Her bravery inspired countless others to speak out, ensuring that her story was not just about pain but also about empowerment. This case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of justice and the resilience of the human spirit. Betrayal's courage showed that even in the face of unimaginable pain, survival and triumph are possible. But it also leaves us with a question: what can we do as a society to ensure that no one else endures such suffering? The answer lies in awareness, accountability, and a commitment to standing with survivors. As we look back on this story, we are reminded of the sheer bravery of Betrayal Saunders, the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement, and the accountability delivered in the courtroom. This was a case that exposed the depths of human cruelty but also revealed the strength of one woman's will to survive. We invite you to reflect on this story. What lessons can we take from it? How can we, as a society, do more to protect those at risk and hold perpetrators accountable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel here on The Last Confession for more content that explores the triumph of justice and the strength of survivors. Together, we can ensure these stories are heard and these lessons are never forgotten.